everybody. This is Lori. I am the founder and CEO of Inclusivity, and we are all about justice, kindness, and sustainable fashion. And this is our podcast, Inclusivi-TALKS. And we are really fortunate today to be talking to Kelly Anderson, who is CrayonKelly. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely is right.
A wonderful artist in the Twin Cities area who does a lot of community art and is creative and amazing, and who is contributing a piece to our Artists Who Share auction raising money for coronavirus recovery. So Kelly, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, I'm super excited.
So tell me where you are, Kelly, because you're sitting in your car outside. So how did you end up there?
There is a food drive that happens every 2 weeks or so in Farmington, and it's open to anybody. And today they had 18,000 pounds of food, and it started at 2 p.m. They fed over like 600 families, but they had an abundance. So I picked up some for some other families to deliver.
Well, that is lovely. Thank you for doing that. And it certainly fits in with our theme and our belief system. So glad to have you in your car talking to us.
Well, thank you. Plus my car is kind of cool. It's where I do all my videos anyway.
It's wonderful. So I wanted to start just by asking, my first question that I ask artists usually is just, when did you start knowing that you were an artist, and what was sort of your first experience of that creativity?
Yeah, so I took my first art class in my junior year of high school, and I can't remember if it was my junior year or my senior year, but one of my pieces of art was published in the Minnesota School Board Association Journal.
Wow.
And I was the type of child that was like very ambitious and out there and working, but I didn't really know if I wanted to go to college. I didn't want to like leave home and be far from my family. I don't know if that was an anxiety thing or if I just felt like I needed to be around them. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I didn't apply to any colleges. I took the SATs and the ACTs, but I didn't apply to colleges. And school graduated in 1998. Not that that ages the year doesn't right there. But then like a few months later, I saw a thing on the TV for AI Minnesota to go and learn art and, you know, use it in a trade skill. And I thought, well, that might be a good fit for me because it's like specific, it's a shorter time. And I went year round and I got my associate's degree. And then this is something that a lot of people don't know about me. I took a job as a pattern designer for a cold air inflatable company. So like those gorillas and stuff you see on top of a dealership or bouncy houses, I got to help make those. Yeah.
Wow, that's an unusual job.
Right? And that was my first art job out of college. And then I went back and got my 4-year degree in graphic design. And I was managing at Chuck E. Cheese, and I was paying for college as I went. And even though my parents were on the lower income side and I got lots of grants and federal help and stuff, I still had to pay AI Minnesota $295 a month to even attend school. So it was an experience, and I was really glad. You learn a lot at art school, but what you don't learn is the business side of things. They don't teach you that. And I was lucky to have been as a restaurant manager, so I learned a lot of business things over the years. But that's probably the first time that I noticed I was going to be an artist, yeah.
So when you took your class in high school, was there anything in particular that you enjoyed? Like, were you a painter, a sculptor? What was your medium at that time?
Drawing.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually pretty decent at drawing people and hands, and it was like right away, and it was very very different. I struggled with drawing cartoon stuff. I struggled with painting. I struggled with color theory. But drawing, for some reason, was so simple, and I did lots of people's pets, and I drew pictures of people from their photograph, and yeah.
That's a very skilled and specific type of art. Do you still do that?
Not as much as I used to, and I feel like because I got married to a cartoon artist who also went to school and then divorced from him. But in that time period that we were together, I feel like I adapted my style more towards his because we were always painting together and working together, and we always sold his style, and that changed me. So then when I got divorced, I took it one step further and I changed my medium and my style again, and I started working with crayons, hence the CrayonKelly. And I wanted to melt them and turn them into things and make them really unique. So not just like one where you see somebody use the hair dryer and they're dripping down. I wanted to be able to take that and create an image out of it. So I started doing like flowers and trees, and then I did Prince's face and sold it within 10 minutes of working on it. And then I know, and then I got into animals, and I was doing like these self images almost about depicting emotions, because I believe that mental health is a huge thing and art can really help relieve that. And crayons allow us to be like childlike and not judged, or not feel like we're judged. So when you put all those tools together, I feel like that's the perfect way to release your mental capacity and grow as a person and feel comfortable in that zone, right?
Yeah.
And the most recent style is that I picked up pen and ink for this project I'm doing to help support the USPS, where somebody will send me a word and I will send them a sketch, and they don't really get to pick. They don't get to, send me photos or such. I get to pick the photo. So like somebody will say, I want a bear, or I want a polar bear. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I go and draw it, ship it in the mail to them, and that's what they get.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
How'd you start that?
I actually stole it from another artist.
Okay.
And when I saw it, it was within like a few hours of him posting it, right? And I tagged him in it and said, I stole this from you. And I believe in abundance. So I don't really feel like artists are competitors. I feel like we all have different styles, and he draws different than I do, right?
Right.
So I stole it from him and I tagged him in it, and he went to bed and he woke up the next morning and he had put his Venmo on there and he'd had 50 orders overnight. And he's like, this is crazy. I did this as a joke. I don't know why this is happening. And then like a few days later, he was up over 100 orders, and then he was over 200 orders. And then WCCO put him on the news and he was over 600 orders. So I was like, I don't really feel bad for stealing your idea anymore. I'm
right.
good. Right?
Yeah, I think it's working out.
Right. And I still had like 100 and some orders. And there's even posts where I'll like tag him and other people. And then sometimes people will be like, I'm trying that too. And I go, well, change your marketing if it's not working for you, because that's really what it comes down to. We all have networks. We all have followers. We all have supporters. And it's how do you engage your supporters in times like this?
Right. I think that's really true. So Kelly, the crayons, I'm fascinated by that. So when you were doing the work with your ex-husband, was that crayons? That was not.
No, that was acrylic paint, mostly on walls. And we did like some interactive things that we had developed over the years, but it was mostly me helping him paint his style of artwork.
Okay.
The crayons were all me, and it was like, I just needed a release. And then after I started it, I learned that there's a thing called encaustic painting, where actually people use beeswax and they paint with a palette knife or a brush, and they use, they melt it or whatever. Well, I was doing this with crayons and a heat gun. I was like, instead of painting though, I wasn't using palette knives or brushes. I was like, I'm just going to draw right on the canvas as it melts. And then you don't really like have control over it all, right? So I got really good at that. And I learned how to use both my hands. So I control the heat with my dominant hand and I draw with my less dominant hand. And I think that right there is a really unique story behind all the artwork.
That's really unique. So you're still doing the crayon work now, and then you've added the pen and ink specifically for this, supporting the USPS by sending these out. Yes. Okay.
Yep, because I feel like they're only $10, right? That's like a steal. But then I pay $1.20 to the USPS to ship them to whoever house, so that's still helping them, Yeah. I figure that's the way we can do things. It's like going to eat at a restaurant when they're closed and taking takeout or something. Those are the little things that we can do to positively impact people. And whether it's 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000, we still get to make that, right?
Yeah. So besides art, when you were younger, what were you passionate about?
I don't really remember this, but recently my cousin told me I wanted to be a fashion designer. Oh, and I was like, I did. All I really remember when I was younger is I would take old outfits, like my grandparents' outfits and their jewelry, and I would cut them up and make new outfits, right? But never like something I would really wear, right? It was more like costumes or whatever. So when she brought that up, I was like, did I tell you I wanted to be that? She's like, yeah. I'm like, huh, interesting.
Huh, I don't remember that.
Right? I'm like, I still don't remember that, but that's cool.
So, Kelly, you talked about mental health being an important part of your work. And so
Yeah.
I want to know a little bit about that and then how you share that with other people through your work.
Yeah. It started because I was in a dark place and I really needed to find a way to get myself out of it and make positive choices rather than drinking or, doing other things that people do to handle things. I wanted to do something positive because I have kids and they're old enough to see everything going on, right? So what I did was I started doing it for myself, and then I was like, well, how can I make this like really meaningful? And somebody bought me a dictionary, and I was like, I'm going to start like making images off of words out of the dictionary. And then I was like, okay. So I did a whole series of like these girls that are naked, but not really naked. So it's not like an inappropriate naked. It's more like a blank canvas naked. And then I put words in there and colors to make somebody look at that painting and go, oh my gosh, I feel that word. Like, I feel like I can believe, or I feel inspired by looking at this.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a whole bunch of series, probably over 100 of those I think I have. They're not all on my website because I'm kind of slow at updating it. But then I did a whole urban series. So I did the urban dictionary. And I didn't really know what to expect with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people were coming into the booth and they'd start reading them and they would just bust out laughing. And I'm like, that's the reaction I want, right? Like, I want you to feel that way, or I want you to feel sad when you look at it. So that was really neat. And then I took it and started adding in the flowers and the animals.
Okay. And right now, do you have a particular, like, are you doing more flowers, more animals, or is it just the whole combination of everything at this point?
I think it's the whole combination of everything. But what I found is when I get into a zone, I'll do like 10 or 20 at a time. Okay. So if it's 10 in the same series or 20 in the same series, because I like to have a consistent body of work. And I found that even though I'm doing the girls that I do now are not the girls I did 2 years ago when I started, right? So I'm like, I got to have like 10 that look alike. So I'll pick 10 words and I'll do all 10 at one time, Oh, yeah, and I started jewelry. I started melting crayon into jewelry, like earrings and necklaces. And
so
yeah,
how do
I've
you
been selling those online.
And how do you get those solid?
Yep, so I ordered the earring backs online, and they're beveled, and then I melt the crayon on in there, and I seal it with an epoxy.
Very cool.
So they don't melt when you're wearing them, unless I dripped crayon on the back. Then you might get some crayon on your ear.
Sure.
But other than that.
That's very cool. So, Kelly, you also do a bunch of community art, don't you? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I was really into doing community art till COVID hit, so that's been an interesting way for me to adapt. But I would go out and engage audiences in interactive murals, right? So I would draw something out, and then I would encourage people to participate by painting a spot. And then I would go in and finish it. And that was probably like one of the biggest parts of my business that's been impacted with all of this craziness that we're experiencing. And that's why I had to pivot more towards like the ink projects and the animals and things like that. But that is a very popular thing. Me and my ex actually started it 10 years ago or 12 years ago. We did this mural with 3 of us and 75 kids, 5 to 15, and we didn't have any experience, right? We had no idea. We put a bunch of paint and brushes out. The kids show up and they just grab what they wanted and they ran toward this wall and they started painting their names, and we're like, how do we handle 75 kids? It was chaos. And now we got it down where we both of us go and do this still, but we'll take over like a school or a class, or we've done groups as large as like 6,000, 7,000, whether it's just one of us or 2 of us, or sometimes we hire assistants. And yeah, we got it figured out to a science, that's for sure.
Yeah. Now, do you still do it with your ex?
Sometimes.
Or you just are both doing that, but in different places?
Yep. It's more that.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of pain in our relationship still. So I think once we get past that,
Yeah. So what else do you do when you're not creating art? What do you enjoy doing?
Roller skating. and
Okay.
hanging out with my kids. I have a 12 and a 15-year-old, and they are way too smart for themselves. And now I have to let my 15-year-old learn how to drive. So that will be a big time occupier.
Yep.
And I've been teaching myself how to cook with all this stuff going on too. So that's been, I guess, a new hobby. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, what are the next things you'd like to do?
One of the projects that I'm raising money for right now is actually I applied for some grants and some funding to take my interactive painting experiences and make them virtual and an online experience to include workbooks, right? So to take all the knowledge and education of the last 10 years and things that we could do in person and create something that people can still use and engage in even in the time that we're going through right now. Because a lot of businesses still need that team building and that camaraderie. Yeah, I can't say the word.
Camaraderie?
Yes! Okay.
All right.
The words are there, but they don't come out of my mouth. And they tell me there's nothing wrong, right? But I'm like, yeah, are you sure? I think there's something wrong with my brain.
I think you're okay.
And they're like, no, Kelly, it's okay. I'm like, well, all right, I don't understand. But yeah, my goal has been in the last few months to start to develop something that I could then send out. So whether somebody wants to teach themselves at home or do something like this where we're Zooming and I walk them through what they have in front of them as a supply kit and their workbook, so that they get the full experience of it. The projects, even though they're art-based, there comes a lot of learning things into it. So like how they engage with their peers, how they look at their peers, how they judge themselves by what they're doing. Are they willing to take guidance and acceptance and learn how to do a new technique or skill? Are they comfortable or not comfortable in doing it in the first place? And I feel like those are all things that I can put into that education platform, and then duplicate so that, I can continue that work.
I love that. That's a fantastic idea.
Well, thank you.
Because I think even when this settles, our experiences are still going to be different. This is going to have long-term effects on sort of what we're looking for. And so I think having something online is really smart.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of things are going to change. People might have events, but not large events for a long period of time. Maybe they get to a point where they want to do those large in-person events, but they don't have the funding. So then they have to figure out how to do it virtually because we're changing to a very virtual world right now, right? So it's a good time and adaptation, I think, for it.
Yeah, agreed. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is if I know you're creating something for our auction, speaking of virtual and doing something virtually. And so I just wanted to ask if you've started it, if you've thought about it, if you have any ideas of what you're going to do.
I would say, I started it. No, I haven't actually. I did think about it.
Okay.
I did think about it. And then I got your email with other ideas, and that sidetracked me. But really, I've been totally sidetracked because I painted a mural before I went to Africa to do artwork with kids in Africa. And then I came home and COVID happened. And then I looked at the mural and I decided I didn't like it. So I painted over it. So this whole week and last weekend and half of last week has been on redesigning that, painting it, and trying to get it done.
Wow. Are you happy with it now?
I'm getting there, I think.
Okay.
I think I'll be happy with it when it's done. It's still in the, here's my drawing. I got to put it on the wall stage. So we'll see.
Okay. Well, good. So it'll be a surprise for us when you finish your project.
Yeah.
I'm excited because you're so talented, and I can't wait to see what you create. Are you thinking you'll do crayons?
I don't know. I haven't decided. See, that's another part of it. Do I want to do the crayons, which I'm known for, or do I want to try to do something with the sketch thing I got going on? 'Cause a lot of people really like it. Or is there a way to combine the two?
Well, I have to say that would be my vote. As you're talking about, I'm like, oh, interesting. I really want you to combine the two, Kelly, because I think we're going to love them both. So So I'm voting for that. You don't have to do it, but that's my vote. Kelly, if you were talking to younger artists or just younger creative people and sort of giving some advice or something that you think they should think about as they're moving forward, what would that be?
I think that younger artists need to set up plans and goals and believe that they're going to get there and not be so hard on themselves as they're getting there, because it doesn't matter what industry or career you choose. It really all comes down to practice. You can have a talent, but if you're not practicing, you're never going to be a professional at it. So you need to make that choice, and you need to learn the business side of things. And it's okay to ask people, especially in something that you're not familiar with or you haven't done before. It's okay to ask for help. And I think that any young artist or creative person, because their minds are such strong on one side, they're not set or used to, how do I then market this thing that I've made, or how do I sell it, or how do I engage people in what I'm trying to accomplish. And yes, you might not be great at those things, but you can start anywhere and you can try. And then just know that it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to be perfect or strong in 100 different things, but what you do have to do is know what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and then go find somebody to fill in where you can't.
That's excellent advice. And if you had to define your philosophy, so the things that are kind of at your core, important to you, the way you choose to live your life, what would that be?
Well, these change quite often for a lot of people as we go through seasons, right? So I am in the season where I believe in hope and abundance, and I believe in faith over fear, and I believe in that there's more than enough for us to not only help everybody and be there for everybody, but to build a community.
Mm-hmm.
Those are probably my two strongest, I think, philosophies. And right now I feel like it's really important to take the ideas and the emotions and the things that I have inside and share them with the people that look up to me and reach out to me and continually tell me, how inspired they are. I feel like if I'm not doing that, then I'm not doing what I was put here to do.
Well, that's lovely.
Thank you.
Can you think of, this is one of my favorite questions that I always ask people, can you think of a story from your life that to you feels like you? So my goal is not that you tell us the story. It doesn't have to be, the big lesson that you've learned. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. What I'm really looking for is when you think of a story from my life, something that pops into your head, can be funny, sad, poignant, anything, but just a story that comes up for you.
Can it be art related stuff?
It can be related to whatever you want.
Okay. So I was in a dark place. I wasn't really leaving my house. I wasn't really eating. I was unemployed. And one of my girlfriends called me and said, hey, I have these tickets to Prince's Estate. It starts in 45 minutes. You got to come because I already paid for this ticket and the girl backed out. So it's free and you better show up. And I was like, I live 55 minutes away. Like, I'm not going to make it in 45 minutes if you say they're not waiting for people, right? And I had not showered because I was depressed, right? So I jump in the shower. I leave with wet hair. Somehow I make it there in time. And we're touring Prince's Estate. And we're standing in the atrium. And they all disperse on me. And I'm just standing there looking up. And I'm like, I should not feel bad about the fact that I'm no longer employed where I was, because I need to use my creative abilities. Yep, I'm going to be an artist full time. That was like the moment. And I want to say it was in 2018 that I made that decision. Wow. I can't remember the exact date. I know.
So it was one of those things that just hit you. It was just a moment.
Yep, it was just a moment. And it was like the lights turned on or the switch turned on inside of me. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. I just have to make this happen.
And you have.
Still making it happen. Trying.
Yes.
It's a
But you
process.
certainly are. You're impressive, and you're so creative and prolific, and you have so many good ideas that I have no doubt that this is this is you. This is where you're supposed to be.
Well, thank you. I found
So,
that I can be really good at a lot of things, but
mhm,
not necessarily as effective or passionate as I am at this.
yeah. And that's a nice thing to find something you're really passionate about.
Yeah. And it's hard for a lot of people, like
Mhm.
they get stuck and they think that I can only work in this industry or do this, and I'm like, you'll be fine. Just tell me what you want to do, and let's figure out a way to help you get there. And they're like, I don't know. I just need a job that pays me this dollar amount. I'm like, that's not how you should look at it. Like, make a vision board, pick some dreams, and go after them. I don't call myself a dreamer, but maybe some other people would.
Mhm.
I feel like if I was a dreamer, I wouldn't be as successful at accomplishing things. So maybe there's other skill sets that come in there. So I don't know what the appropriate phrase is on that.
I think you don't even have to have a phrase for it. If you know what it is, it doesn't need a word. So,
Okay.
Kelly, were there any people that you trained with or anything as far as an artist that are sort of um, gave you some inspiration or something that really stuck with you?
I would say when we did our first art show at Lakeville,
Mhm.
we actually had a 2-hour conversation with an artist that had been there like 4 or 5 years, and she was on the jury, and she had helped choose, my ex-husband's artwork to be in the art fair, even though it was like both our names on it.
Right.
She spent time with us, like helping us learn how to bag and print and price and market our stuff so that we were ready for that first art show.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot express how grateful I am to have had that opportunity. A lot of people don't get that, And
Yeah.
another artist that really inspired me was an airbrush artist back in I was in high school, and he used to paint on cars. And I'm like, that's really amazing. I want to do it. I bought all these airbrushes, and then I worked at Valley Fair for a while as an airbrush tattoo artist and did some cartoon sketches for a while. And then, we lost our paths and we went separate ways. And I think I ran into him 6 years ago at an art fair, and he's still doing art. So I'm like, dude, this is awesome.
Awesome.
Just not airbrushing as much as he used to.
I was going to ask if he was doing the same thing. So art, but
No.
not quite. Okay.
Yeah, he adapted and changed over his mediums as well, which probably normal for any professional artist, right?
It does seem to be that people, because that's life, right? You ebb and flow in your life, and you make different decisions at different times. And I think if you
Yeah.
follow your passion, you're always, my experience is that if you follow your passion, you're always leaping, right? You're always taking, you glide for a while, and then there's another big jump to get you where you're supposed to be.
Right, you never know. I'm currently working on a project with Crayon and Polaris about doing chalk murals around town.
Oh.
Started as a 2-second conversation with a text message with the general manager of the local Crayola place, and she took it back to their corporate, and then I posted it to 15 business owners that I knew or higher up people that I thought might fund it. And then I got on a call with Polaris, and today I had another call with TriNet, and I'm like, sometimes the things just fall in place when you're trying to do something. I'm probably not, people sometimes struggle because a lot of the stuff is in my head, right? And I just say, hey, let's do this, and I'll adapt and change really fast. So I don't have a 40-page PowerPoint I can send somebody on how the project is going to go, because it might be that way yesterday, but if somebody approaches me with a really cool idea, I'm going to incorporate it, right? So I've learned, don't waste the time on that. Just move forward, and if the people want to work with you, they'll learn your style, and if they don't, it's okay too. We can all work in our different capacities and ways.
I like that advice, because that is exactly how my mind works as well. It's like, okay, well, this is another cool thing that's coming up. So yeah, I want to do that. So Kelly, wonderful talking to you. You are delightful. I think you have great advice for other people, and I love your art, and I'm just so excited to see what you come up with for the auction. And thank you for hanging out with us for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, it was my pleasure, and everybody who's listening, thank you so much, and I'll be back another time. Thanks, Kelly.